A recent poll of 507 business leaders by the trade group Maritime UK showed that more than half of those asked agreed one of the top benefits from Brexit would actually be the ability for Great Britain to strike its own fresh trade deals. But one trade expert in today's edition of the Daily Express was quoted as saying that the UK should hope for the best and plan for chaos when it comes to trade.
For more on what is ahead and how it could also impact the US, let's bring in Antony Phillipson, the UK Trade Commissioner for North America, the Consul General here in New York. Very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Great to be
here. You report to both the UK Foreign Secretary and also the UK Secretary for International Trade. And the latter, Liam Fox, said recently that a no deal is now more likely than an actual deal for Brexit. Do you agree with that? And how big a blow could that be to the UK economy?
I think the thing to focus on is, as the Prime Minister has set out, we have a plan for dealing with the negotiation with the EU. We've completed the negotiations effectively on the withdrawal agreement, on the implementation period. Now attention turns to the future partnership. We're very confident of doing that deal, but we also believe that we have to plan for all contingencies. So we are doing no-deal planning, and there will be more of that rolled out over the next few weeks and months, because it's only the prudent thing to do. The trade expert that you mentioned in the Daily Express, which I saw this morning, is a former Australian trade official. I think he was expressing a point of view, but it's not one that the British government would agree with.
In terms of what could come after Brexit, clearly a US trade deal is something that's been discussed very often. Given the actions that we've seen from the President recently, do you think that that is less likely than perhaps a year or two ago? And even if it does happen, what stops the President from reneging on it 2 months later?
So I think it's important to sort of keep the things separate, including the fact that the Prime Minister and the President, when they met in London in July, were very clear in their press conference with each other and in their talks with each other that they are both committed to the UK and US agreeing an ambitious free trade agreement as soon as we can negotiate one once we've left the EU next March. On the 20th of July, the UK government began a 14-week consultation period to ask business, consumers, civil rights groups, etc., what they wanted from a UK-US trade deal. So we're committed to dealing with that. On the tariffs, we have made clear that we don't agree with the tariffs that have been imposed on EU exports of steel and aluminium, and we are sort of joining our EU partners in the counter-retaliation on that, and we will continue to argue against those. We welcome the EU-US agreement to begin their own set of trade talks that would hopefully avert any future tariffs. But you know, we're confident that we can do a deal with the US. We are confident that the US will want to do a deal with us, and if we get the deal right, then there'll be mutual benefit for both sides, and it will stick.
How long does it take to negotiate a free trade deal?
I think it can take as long as the two sides want it to take. We are committed to doing one fast. We've begun the preparations now so that we're ready to go as soon as we've left the EU next March, and we'll do it as fast as we possibly can.
You used to report to Boris Johnson when he was Foreign Secretary. What's his greatest attribute and his biggest weakness?
Well, I now report to the current Foreign Secretary, so I think I'll leave that there.
Fair enough. In terms of the EU, the negotiations with them, of course, ongoing, have they been too stubborn during this process to allow the UK to get to a deal that would be worth doing?
This is a negotiation. There are views on both sides. What I think I would just come back to, as I said a second ago, is the Prime Minister set out how she wanted to work through this negotiation. And that's pretty much what we have done. The EU also set out its position at the beginning of the process, and we are working sort of to their guidelines as well as our own stated positions. There's 9 months to go. At one level, that's not a very long period of time, but we have made considerable progress, and we are very confident that we can bring this together in order to have the withdrawal agreement, the implementation period, the future framework, the framework for the future partnership, all ready for by the time that we leave next year.
If you don't get a deal with the EU, I mean, if they can't figure it out, the plan B that you talked about, I mean, what is that? Is that reverting to WTO rules and higher tariffs?
Well, as I said, I think the contingency planning that we're talking about is to understand what would be the consequences of leaving with no deal and making sure that we can continue to trade, that life goes on as normal as possible. But I would just reiterate, we are very confident in being able to do a deal. We believe it's in the EU's interests, it's in our interests. There's a long way to go in this negotiation, but there's still time to do it.